Welcome to Alchemy Uncensored, a podcast presented by Alchemy Search, a team of professional financial and tax recruiters. Our podcast is dedicated to providing valuable insights into the financial and tax sector of the UAE by discussing the challenges and opportunities faced by employers and job seekers. Alchemy Uncensored is the perfect podcast for those looking to gain a competitive edge in the finance, accounting and tax industry of the UAE. Stay informed on the latest job market trends, developments and conversations to stay ahead of the game. Tune into our podcast to be part of this insightful conversation. Hello, fellow alchemists. Thank you for listening to the podcast thus far. 2024, big year ahead. The one favor I would ask, if you can, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, is to press the follow and subscribe button on whatever media platform you listen to us, as it helps us grow our network and grow the podcast. So thank you and enjoy the podcast today.
Welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Uncensored podcast. Today I'm joined by Sachin Jain. Sachin is an industry leader with more than 18 years experience. He's working as a Group CFO for one of the largest African conglomerates with a presence in more than 10 geographies. In the past, he has worked with various multinational organisations such as Coca Cola, Mondelez and Export Trading Group. He initially started working in Asia before spending several years in Africa, and he's currently based in Dubai. He's a public speaker, mentor, angel investor, tech enthusiast, leader and M&A expert. Sachin, welcome to the Alchemy podcast.
Thank you, Louis.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
How was your Christmas period, New Year? Did you stay in Dubai? Did you go away? What did you get up to?
Yeah, so my New Year I spent here in Dubai. Obviously, Dubai is the best place to spend this time. But yes, for Christmas I was with my family back in India, with my parents, with my broader family, spent some time with my friends. So yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, good break, and now you're back into the swing of things.
Action.
Well, thank you for coming. You've got obviously quite an interesting background, experience, worked in multiple geographies, hence why I thought it'd be useful bringing you on as a guest. So it'd be good to hear, really, initially, how did you end up in Dubai? Because I know you moved here in May last year, is that right? Tell us about how that all came apart.
Yeah, so I was quite happy in Africa, as I always say that Africa is perhaps the most beautiful continent. And we were just discussing before that, would you like to go back to Africa again? I won't mind. So, but if I tell you that I have spent like 8 to 9 months in Dubai, and I can tell you that my impression of Dubai has changed quite some. So I always used to think that Dubai is more about buildings, more about a lot of infra and a lot of other things. But when I'm trying to meet people, when I'm connecting with the people, when I'm going beyond the city life, I can see this is a wonderful place. And when I moved here last year in May, it was pretty hot season and not the best time to come to Dubai. And many of my friends advised me not to come at this time. But then I perhaps spent May, June and few months, which was a bit of summer here, but I didn't find any problem as such, because infra has been built in such a way that you can afford to live in those months. And beyond after post-October, it's a perfect weather, and I'm spending a lot of time going with family, trying to see the places here. So yeah, it's a good place to be in. And the good part with me is I'm able to see Middle East from a different angle. I used to come here often as a visitor because my previous head office was here, so I always used to travel. But then when I'm staying here and I'm connecting with the masses, it's given me a very different learning, very different experience, and it's more of a positive.
Yeah, because you're working for, is it Janus Continental Group at the moment, like I said in the intro, so an African conglomerate, but you're based here. So tell us about that role, what your mandate is and about the business.
Yeah, so with Janus Continental, I joined last year with them, and it's a African conglomerate. We work in multiple industries. Biggest businesses, definitely we are into petroleum products. We import petroleum products in Africa, and then we manage the supply chain for many of the B2B businesses. We are into real estate and hospitality. We are into power projects. So we have our own power plants in various parts of Africa. We are in EPC businesses. So these are the major businesses we are into. We are exploring more. In terms of geography, we are mainly present in Eastern and Southern Africa. And then we have offices in Dubai, Mauritius, and Europe as well. So yeah, and we have plans to further expand into Africa.
Yeah, and your role then as CFO, tell us about that, and how comes you're based in Dubai with obviously the focus of business in Africa?
Yeah, so I'm playing the role of Group CFO, and because the group resources are based here, so it's obvious for me to, most of the leadership team is based here, so it's obvious for me to be based here. But yes, I have to continuously travel to various projects and various countries within Africa, Mauritius, Europe, and other places. In terms of why Middle East or why Dubai for head office, it's a structurally, if I see for my company and from a strategic point of view, this is the best place to be in. Very close to Africa, very close to many parts of the world. It's very easy to travel to any part of the world anytime, and you get excellent resources. You get excellent talent here. That's another reason for us to be based in Dubai.
Yeah, and I think when we first met, what I found really interesting was predominantly most of your career was in Africa, right? So you lived in Ghana. Where else did you live in Africa?
Yeah, I started my Africa story from a francophone country, Ivory Coast. And when I landed in Ivory Coast, I didn't know even a single word of French. So this was a very, very different experience, and I could see the world from a very different angle. So I was based in Ivory Coast for quite some time with my family, and we could learn so many things there about the culture, about the francophone culture especially, and about the African culture. Then we moved to Kenya. Kenya is predominantly an East African country and very different from the West African scenarios. So I was based there for around 2.5 to 3 years. And then I was based in Ghana, and from Ghana only I moved here.
And the reality of working in Africa, I'm intrigued what that looks like. Like, what was your experience from, firstly, a professional standpoint? It'd be interesting to hear, and then personally with your family.
I can tell you, this was perhaps the best time of my life. Okay, I can tell you one thing about this continent, that you will find amazing people there. Okay, everybody is so helpful. People are eager to help you, and they try to help you beyond whatever their limits are. So I think that was one best part. People are sometimes very emotional about how they connect with you, and that's where they expect you also to sometimes understand their requirements and understand their culture. So I can say that this was a wonderful experience being in Africa. I have traveled perhaps most of these countries, and not only the capital cities. I could travel. I was fortunate enough that I could travel nook and corners of these countries, and I could actually see the best of the Africa. And that's why I always say everyone that this is a wonderful continent, immense opportunities. You have a wonderful talent, and post few years you will have the youngest population of the world coming from Africa. So, and then you have a lot of agricultural activities, lot of changes happening in these countries in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the political situations, in terms of manufacturing, and this is one of the continent which people should explore.
And the ease of doing business, is that a challenge? You hear stories. What's the situation?
This is something where they are working upon, and I won't say that you can compare the circumstances with the developed countries. Definitely, but situation is evolving. Doing business is definitely a challenge there because sometimes there is a lot of political situations, a lot of corruption as well. Infra issues are there. You may not have the best of the roads to travel. You may not have the best of the supply chain available to move your materials. but they are working on many of these things. And I can see, and I'm very, very optimistic that in next few years you will see a drastic change in the way Africa right now and the way Africa will lead the world.
What parts in particular of Africa do you think are going to boom, and what sectors as well as the countries?
You see, the core of Africa is agriculture, okay, and this is one of the sector where they are going to definitely lead the world, and they're going to. I won't be surprised if they will be kind of the supply. They will be supplying most of these commodities to the European countries or USA, or because most of their agriculture produce are very good quality. They are not using a lot of fertilizer. They are not using a lot of pesticides. So the quality of the food which they produce is very good. They have vast, huge arable land available. They have the resources who can do the work. So definitely agriculture is going to be one of the biggest areas. Then logistic and supply chain is another sector I feel can be a good boost for Africa. Technology and the service industries, because of the young population and the resources which will be available after some time in these countries, can be another sector. So these are the three sectors can be very, very good for Africa.
What about the oil? Is that I read some articles about oil and the opportunities in that field. Is that something that's been unexploited to date? Is that always been the case, that oil has been a big presence in Africa, or?
Yeah, oil definitely. If you see, Nigeria has oil, and many countries. Gabon has oil. Many countries they are having oil. But the issue with Africa is most of the crude oil was going to other countries and being processed by other countries and then coming back to be used by these African countries once again. So I can see drastic changes. If you see Nigeria landscape, Dangote has put a huge refinery and they are trying to process a lot of their crude oil within Nigeria. Similar will be the situation in many of these countries, so that they are kind of self-sufficient in many of these areas. If you see from other energy sources, gas is going to be quite a good sector for Africa, and currently they are not able to tap the whole resources or they are not able to tap what's available with them. Either it is getting exported or it is not getting even explored. So that's another huge opportunity I see with Africa.
So if you was to predict then the outlook of Africa, I'm going to put you on the spot. What does that look like? What we thinking in terms of timescales?
I feel on a very optimistic scale, I will say 15 years, 10 to 15 years. And on a very pessimistic scale, I will say 30 years max. This is a time period. Africa is going to bounce back and going to be one of the continent which will be looked for many of the industrializations and many of the supply chains and many of the productions. So let's watch, and I'm sure, especially within 2-3 sectors which I just mentioned, Africa is going to lead.
So the free trade agreement in Africa, I know that's something that you're very knowledgeable about. So tell us a bit about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so African continent free trade agreement is something which has the intention of actually keeping the economic movements within Africa borderless. Now the issue with the African continent free trade agreement is, on papers, this concept looks very nice, and people think this has the potential of growing the economy of Africa to a great extent. It will allow a lot of countries to do manufacturing within Africa. So the African resources are not moving to other parts of the world, but maybe processed within Africa. So that is the idea behind this whole thing. But the issue with the African continent free trade agreement is that even if you put this on paper, when the trucks are moving from one country to another country, there has to be a mechanism which allow this agreement to kind of give support to those movements. And I have seen cases where in spite of all the initiatives between two countries, at the border, either the custom officers or maybe sometimes the government officials or the police officials, the things are not, or the goods are not moving in a way which was the intention behind many of these agreements. So there is always a difference between the practical aspect of this thing. So, but I'm quite optimistic, and I've been talking to many people around, and I can see in next few years, once these things will practically be implemented, there will be a drastic change in Africa's economy. Just to give you an example, there are many countries in Africa, for example, Nigeria. They have a good manufacturing base, but on the same time, in spite of having a good manufacturing base, they are importing many items from other countries beyond Africa, because that becomes cheaper for them, because bringing something, let's say, from South Africa to Nigeria, or maybe Angola to Nigeria, is tougher than bringing it from, let's say, any of the countries in Asia. So once this agreement comes into the practical reality, and there are good roads, there are good transport system, there is a good railway network, or even the cargo planes, okay? So there is a good infra for the airports and the cargo planes. This can drastically change the fortunes of Africa.
So there's no agreement currently amongst the African countries, or there hasn't been, to date.
So there is an agreement. An agreement, and there
it's
are
not been maximized.
It's not been maximized, or there are still practical difficulties.
So it's easier to do business with Asia, for example. So import from Asia.
Yes, than to do
than Africa.
In Africa.
So arguably, there's a lot of potential with the relationship amongst the African countries. But
absolutely,
is there not an argument to say that there's too many countries, to kind of work with and all make sure you're all on the same page? Like, is that not going to be an issue, whether it's economically, politically, because you've got to obviously adhere and work with lots of different people with their own agendas?
Yeah, I can see a lot of positive initiatives in this regard. Just to give you an example, Kenya and Rwanda, both of these countries are exploring options to allow visa-free entry to any African coming to these countries. Now, if they are exploring, and let's say all the African countries come with this kind of concept, obviously with the right checks and balances, so that it doesn't allow any illegal trade or people coming illegally to these countries. But if this happens, visa-free entries with the right documentation, this can also bring a lot of changes to the economies or the way business is being done in these countries. If you see, even from a tourism perspective, many of these countries have the good tourist facilities or good options to explore. But on the same time, because of the visa hassles or because of the issues in going or reaching to these places, the tourism industry is not able to get the right boost. So if all these steps are taken and all the countries within Africa are able to actually create a framework like Europe has created, this can definitely be a big boost for Africa.
So essentially the agreement is one of many initiatives in place that hopefully, as per your prediction, will propel
practical realities will
propel Africa into a bit of a powerhouse perhaps in the future, and easier place to visit and do business.
Definitely.
Fair enough. And your experience then, so you worked for some big multinationals, so Olam, Export Trading Group. Talk us through that experience in multinationals, but also multinationals in Africa. What was that like?
Obviously, there is a big difference in both of these type of companies. A few companies are governed by, few companies are very old where I worked, like Coca Cola or DuPont or Cadbury's, which is Mondelez, and if you compare it with the Export Trading Group or maybe JCG, which we are working, which are more of owner-driven organizations. So there is a sea change, but I personally believe that in a companies like Coca Cola or in many of the Fortune 100 companies or Fortune 500 companies, you are working on a template. You are just filling the template. You are not creating the template. But in an owner-driven organization or in a family-driven organization, you have the opportunity to create the template actually, which is what inspires me, or which is what gives me a boost in terms of the career, that yes, I can create something new, and then I can work for the benefit of the thousands of the people, whether it's whether it's employees in these companies, or whether it's somebody who is working for our company as a contractor, or somebody whose life we are changing because of our economic activities in these countries. So that's something creates a difference beyond what you achieve as a professional.
Yeah, so the mention of the template is quite interesting. So your advice then would it be for people to work in a big multinational, and then after that go to a family group or a smaller business? Like what do you advise people to do?
Yeah, if you really need an excitement and you really want to create something, then this can be one of the ways that you learn, you understand, and best of the organization, so that you see how the industry is working, and then you can either replicate or you can create many of the best practices in the companies who are looking for these kind of processes.
Yeah, and apart from the template that you mentioned, what are the other differences working in a group like you're in now compared to a large multinational like what you mentioned?
Yep, I didn't find actually a big difference as such in terms of other working. Most of these companies are governed by good HR practices, good HR policies. Obviously, there can be scope of improvement because of the age of the company, because it requires some time and energy and somebody to really work on and to create many of these things or many of these policies, practices, which is again an evolving situation for a new company. But yes, beyond that, I have seen most of the companies or most of the promoters or management teams, they really want to encourage the growth and want to take care of the employees. So I didn't encounter anything which is drastically changed or which is drastically different in both kind of organizations.
Yeah, okay. And one topic I know you're really passionate about, and I think it's quite evident when you talk and through your career is leadership. So tell us why you're so passionate about it and what makes a good leader in your eyes.
Yeah, because whenever you are in a leadership position or in a management position, the most important thing is how are you going to influence the process? How are you going to influence the people around you? And that comes with the leadership. So, and I always say that to be a good leader or to be a good manager, you need to be a good human being first. So that's a key for any of the roles I have played. And I always say, whatever technical roles you are into, if you are managing a team or if you are at least influencing the team, you should have a bit of HR into it. And I'm sure you will be happy to hear this because of your profession. So I feel HR is or human resource or people and culture is a very important pillar for any organization. And leadership is key to most of the managers or any of the manager, in fact. So I always encourage people to, beyond the technical skills or beyond your key job, should spend time in learning many of these things and influence people.
Yeah, so being a good person sounds like is one of the fundamentals to leadership.
You need to have good ethics. You need to have, these things are never old-fashioned. So being a good human being or being following the ethics or doing the right things are never old-fashioned. So whatever we say, but to work with people, you have to create a trust around. And that trust can come only when you are doing the right things.
So what else do you think then to be a good leader? What makes you a good leader, would you say?
One of the very important pillar of the leadership is to create more leaders. So create a freedom. And I was actually talking to someone and he quoted me one of the stories, and if we will have time, I'll try to quote that story here.
Sure.
One of my friend who was running a company of his own, obviously inherited from his father. He was querying me about one of the employee because he hired someone, and after 2.5 years, the employee wanted to leave the company, leave the organization. And he discussed with me that Sachin, the guy want to leave the organization after 2.5 years after learning everything. And he was very, very sad about the fact. Then I mentioned to the guy that this is because of your leadership that you are creating more leader. So you should be happy about it instead of being sad about it. So that's how it's all about how we see the progress of our employees, how we see the people around. So if we really feel that somebody is going to the next role, somebody is going to the create something of own, and we became part of that story, we should be very happy, and we should actually be kind of positive about it instead of cribbing about it.
Yeah, because I do see that. I think sometimes, especially in our industry, there's lots of instances where people join a firm and then they go and set up on their own, and it's quite easily done. But what you're saying is actually don't take that as an insult or be frustrated. Actually take that as a positive. That you've created someone who wants to go and set up on their own and be their own leader and their own entrepreneur, own business owner. And you think that's actually a good sign of good leadership.
Absolutely. You see, the best of the firms, if I see from, let's say, your profession or any of the consultancy, best of the consulting firms are who create more consulting firms. Okay, so if you see, I won't quote many of the consulting firms. They actually allowed another consulting firm to come over, and which is good thing, because we should not take it as a competition. We should always take it that we allowed somebody to go to the next level.
Yeah,
that's a positive part of the story.
It's a good outlook, and I'm sure one we can take forward. So, as a senior leader, as a CFO, you've had lots of people within your team structure. In terms of recruitment, how do you go about, firstly, recruiting people? What do you look for?
I know most of the people think that, and they normally complain about that, I said everything right, whatever somebody asked me in the interview, I answered all the questions, but I was not recruited. Okay. Personally, if you ask me, and the key for recruitment is not only the technical knowledge or technical questions or answers. This is more about the attitude. Okay. And when you are hiring somebody, when you are looking for somebody, you always see whether this person can fit into the culture of the company, culture of the organization. Will he or she will have an attitude to deliver the on the role which we are looking for? Will she be somebody who can take over from me or maybe my team member in future? So it's not only a short-term engagement when you are hiring somebody. You are actually looking for a very long-term engagement. And that's why I always say that if you are hiring somebody, allow him to work. Don't micromanage, okay? And give some space, give some time to the new person to come in, understand the organization, understand the culture. And then we are supposed to allow the resource or the person to take over and deliver. So for me, the key to conclude the answer is the attitude, and maybe the technical skills will be the second priority for me.
Yeah, so attitude is quite a difficult one, right? Because are you suggesting if I came to interview for your business, for example, I'm either a good fit or I'm not? Like, how can a candidate prepare best for an interview if it's all about like the culture fit? Because I think that's feedback that we get quite a lot is, they're not the right culture fit. Is that just something that you just have to acknowledge that not everyone's going to suit every organization?
Not necessary. So when I say culture fit, it's not only from the perspective of the organization, but also from the perspective of the industry. So we should allow people who want to change, who has some ability to make very definite changes to the system or to the organization. it doesn't mean that definitely the person come and just become part of the system or culturally fit. When I say culture or when I say the attitude means the delivery. Okay, the person should be able to deliver. Person should be able to at least learn, understand, and then deliver. So it's not about the technical knowledge. You may have best of the technical knowledge, but that doesn't mean that you will be able to solve many of the organizational problems. For solving the problems, you really need to have the right attitude.
Fair enough. And I mean, obviously, as a recruitment podcast, it's a hot topic, recruitment in UAE. So people are probably very envious that you've made that move. What advice would you give to people? How can someone either secure their next role if they're already here, or make the move from another part of the world? What advice would you give?
Okay, so I will split the whole process into 2-3 parts. Always prepare for the move, number one. So you should be confident that I can make a move. I have seen many people spending a whole lot of time in the companies without getting the right recognition in spite of doing all the work. Maybe it's not about the companies, but it's also about the person, whether you want to grow or you don't want to grow. So number one, have an attitude of growth, have an attitude of change. If you feel that I have done everything for this company and I can actually, now it's time for me to go to the next level. It's time for me to learn something new. So it's a call which has to be taken. So number one, you have to prepare for the change. Okay. Now, when you are prepared for the change, the next step is to look for 4 to 5 things or 4 to 5 variables. And if you are getting out of 4 to 5, you are at least should get 3 variables when you are moving, which are you should grow in the role, which is very, very important. So if you are doing X work in your present organization, when you are going to a next organization, you should be doing something X plus something. Okay, so that you allow your role to grow, which is very, very important for me. Second is you should be comfortable with the location and the culture of the country or the organization. So I have seen many people just moving because of compensation or many other things, but they are not able to fit into the culture. They are not able to fit into the culture of the country or the company. So understand the location. Understand that whether you and your family will be comfortable with that location or not. Third is, which is very important, is compensation. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily that you should grow in the compensation, which is perhaps people keep on the first point, but I keep it on a third point. If your role is growing, if you are getting what you are looking for, but maybe you can compromise on the compensation sometime, which is the third thing for me. And the fourth thing is, please understand the team or the people with whom you are going to work. Okay. Are you comfortable working with those guys or not? So these are 4 to 5 factors which everybody should look while making a move. And if you are getting, let's say, 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5, you should be very comfortable.
How do you advise someone then in terms of the culture? Because if you're doing a couple of interviews, typically probably 2-3 stages, might be a couple of hours, and then you're in a position where you've got to make a decision if you should move. How are you meant to know the culture? Because everyone you meet, and this is the same, every company we speak to, every client we meet, say they have a good culture. What does a good culture mean? And how do you actually decipher if the company you're potentially joining has a good culture without starting?
Okay, so I agree to you, and this is a very subjective topic, whether the culture is right or not, or a culture for somebody can be good, but on the same time, the same culture can be bad for someone else. So this is a very subjective topic. Now, how to dig about it and how to know that whether the culture is right? Try to talk to few people within that organization. Nowadays, it's very easy to know who are the people who are working in the organization. Try to talk to them, try to meet them over a coffee or something, and trying to understand what they think about their current organization. Now, addition to this, try to meet the people who have just left the organization, because they kind of the flag bearer of the organization, and because they are not working with the organization, so they can be more transparent with you. So try to talk to those second category of people. try to talk to a few consultants like you or your professional colleagues, because I have seen most of the consultants who are working in a particular industry, they know the culture, they understand that this organization is doing well, they are doing well in terms of the employee engagement, in terms of the growth of the career and many other aspects. So that can be another way. Definitely, after doing all the research, you may still be wrong, but I can assure you, if you are doing these 3-4 steps, there are very likely chances that your decision will be right.
Yeah, I think it gives you the peace of mind, doesn't it, that you've done all that you can, and you may still make the wrong decision. But that's advice I give to people: is you have to do the due diligence beforehand to understand why is the role even, why are they recruiting? Is it a replacement role? Is it a new role? Is the company growing? And like you say, speak to the colleagues, either they're working there now or those who have left, and just be mindful that there's always two sides to a story, so you will get opinions.
Absolutely.
I've had instances where I've spoken to someone who's left an organisation probably on bad terms, so their viewpoint is going to be different from someone else, but you really need to do the due diligence. Because we hear countless examples of people who join companies in Dubai and maybe it wasn't what they expected, and when you really speak to them and they've taken the role without doing the proper due diligence, and I don't blame them, because the market's so competitive that people want to work, they want to get a consistent income, it's expensive to live here, but like you say, they could end up in a situation whereby, is it really the right thing to do? Because the company they've joined maybe isn't the best culture for them.
Understand. And one more thing, which is beyond culture, and I'm speaking because I'm from the same profession. If it is a public company, or if it is a listed company, go through the financials, understand how's the financial health of the company. Is there anything which is mentioned in the financial which can affect the going concern of the organization? Understand all these aspects, because when you're taking a decision, you're not taking a decision for months, you're taking a decision for years. So be mindful about what changes you are making.
Yeah, I think that's definitely valid, especially for the senior candidates. I've had examples where I think CFOs, FDs have asked for such information if it's not readily available, and there's been a bit of resistance, and I think that can give maybe the wrong impression, because if you are joining at a senior level, you're going to see the numbers anyway, right? So
absolutely.
You need to do that due diligence if you can. So
very important.
You've been here now approaching a year very soon, so about 8 months or so. Is it what you expected? Now, I know you've been travelling to and from Dubai, but actually living and working here, like, what's the reality of that?
Yeah, so this city never disappoints, and I have talked to a lot of people here, and because I keep on meeting people, my profession also wants me to people, a lot of bankers, a lot of professional colleagues, other professionals. So I have not seen people feeling disappointed here, and that's the vibe of this city, which allows everyone to live and enjoy life here. So that way I feel Dubai is good. If you see from my perspective, I've been quite busy initially settling down, and I was traveling, and then my role required me to spend extra hours on the job. So I was quite busy. But yes, in last few months, especially since winter season has started, I could spend some time seeing this city, and I can tell you this is one of the best cities I have seen. And this is one of the place where you are very safe. You feel your family feel very safe, and you can do what you want. So especially if you are a guy who want to explore nature, you have the places you can explore nature beyond Dubai. If you are a guy who want to go to a lot of shopping, you have the options to go for a lot of shopping. So everything is available, and it's upon you how you want to live your life. So I'm quite positive, and I would encourage people to come and look this market. This is a wonderful market. This is a wonderful place to be in. So my I would say from my side, it's a very well recommended place.
And if you was to predict the outlook then of Dubai and other parts of the Middle East, obviously you've worked in India, you've worked in Africa. What do you think over the coming years? I mean, you've got your crystal ball. I've asked you a few times now, so no pressure. But what's your outlook on the future of the Middle East?
Very positive. The way Middle East is evolving in terms of communication, in terms of supply chain, in terms of infrastructure, I'm very impressed. I remember maybe 8 to 10 years before, this was not the situation. But in last 8 to 10 years, the plans which I see, especially in Middle East, are very impressive. And this is one of the places where you are supposed to be. And definitely there is a lot of growth in terms of many of the professions which is going to come in these markets. So I would encourage all the professional colleagues to definitely explore opportunities here and see how they can build a career here.
I got the feeling after this podcast you might get a few messages from people trying to maybe
I'm
get
helping your
advice.
cause.
So on a lighter note then, a few quick fire questions. So
Please.
what's your favourite restaurant in Dubai?
Okay, if you ask me, I know you're looking for a very straight question. I'll give you a straight question as well. But I'm quite fond of Lebanese food, so I often go for a very good Lebanese restaurant. So, but yes, if you ask me in terms of the favorite, there's one Indian restaurant as well, which I often visit with my family and my kids. It's called Hichki. It's a wonderful restaurant with some
Where is that?
Bollywood vibes. It's very nearby, near Al Basha only.
Okay.
So
And
quite a good
any
restaurant.
Lebanese restaurants in particular, anywhere you want to
There
recommend?
is a very good restaurant in JLT. It's in Cluster Y. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good restaurant.
They're missing out on the free promotion. So
Yeah.
look at Lebanese restaurants in JLT and it'll be one of those maybe.
Yeah, in Cluster Y. It's a very good restaurant. I always go there.
Fair enough. And you've got obviously your family here.
Yeah.
How do you spend your weekend? I imagine you're quite busy.
It's normally on demand of the family, and I'm mostly playing the role of a driver.
Taxi service, yeah.
So normally my wife and my kids, they plan for the weekend, and we try to spend at least a one full day with the family, wherein we are going out and exploring some places in Dubai. So by this way, the plan is that at least 30 to 40 weekends at least I can go, and 30 to 40 places within this year I can go and see in Dubai. And you won't be you won't be surprised. You have been living here that every week I go and I explore some place, and after that I come to know that, oh, we didn't visit this particular place, so we have a plan for another 3 weekends. So it's amazing.
So and where's the place you've been to and you've been like, wow, I didn't expect that, or what really stands out, somewhere you visited?
I don't know why, but maybe because we lived a lot in Africa. We always like gardens, we always like beaches, then the malls here. So I know many people, they love the malls here. They love more of a concrete things and all. But yes, we love beaches, and we try to go to some gardens, some places where you can roam around. So yeah.
Fair enough. And
I even like Global Village.
Global Village, yeah. I've not been
It's
yet.
very crowded. It's
Yeah.
very crowded, but you get a lot of variety. You can see a lot of varieties there if you
Good
love
food?
shopping. Yeah, you have a lot of cuisines there, and multicultural, so you can see all the cultures there.
A bit crazy busy.
Crazy busy. So try to avoid weekends.
Yeah.
Try to go on weekday.
Best country you visited?
Okay, so
I imagine you've been to quite a few. So.
So I know many of you will be surprised. I have traveled to Europe. I have traveled to many of the countries. But if I see, I would still rate Kenya as a very good country where I have lived and I traveled. Okay, it's only because of they have preserved the nature like no other country has preserved. And it's still very raw. If you go to the many parts of Kenya, you'll find a very different vibe which you can't get anywhere else. Temperature is very ambient, so you are not exposed to any harsh weather at any point of time.
All year round?
No, all year around. So there is no harsh winter, there is no harsh summer. Temperature, let's say Nairobi is almost like 14 to 22 degree. So, which is a very unique combination in the cities surrounded by all the national parks. So, it's a wonderful place.
So Kenya's number one. So
For
we
me.
advise visiting.
Yes.
And so you're a CFO. You've been a finance professional for a good period of time. If you wasn't a CFO, what would you be?
Okay, there are 3-4 questions. There are 3-4 options which I explored, and I feel if you allow me, I will keep 2-3 options that either of these. One of the option I feel is I may be a politician. Okay. I have a lot of interest in world politics, how the things are happening, or maybe somewhere in a social service. Administrative services, politician or like administrative services. That is one of the key area, and
maybe a post CFO
yes,
career,
possible.
perhaps politician.
Because I have a very deep interest what's happening around and how people are affected because of many of the government policies. I keep on reading many policy documents, how this is going to impact the people. So that's one of the interest area which I have. Another, if I see from a professional side, I would be perhaps in HR or people in culture. Yeah. I know I can pose a competition to you guys.
You're going to set up your own recruitment firm.
Yeah. So because I always say this is something very close to me, talking to people and understanding their issues, understanding their problems. So HR is something which I feel I could have done very well, because you need to be very sensitive when you are in that kind of role. So that is from a professional side. So these are the 2-3 options.
Few options, yeah. So was you always planning to be a CFO? It sounds like you had a few other options, or did it happen by accident?
Not now, maybe post-retirement options.
Fair enough. And finally then, what gets you up in the morning?
I spend some time in yoga. Okay, that's something I always do, and which is
first thing in the morning.
Not really, not first, but yes, one of the most important morning tasks I do. I spend fair 30 minutes, which gives me a very good mental peace as well as a physical peace. So I recommend everybody to spend some time on yoga or any other activity in the morning time, and which always helps me prioritize my things and giving peace to my mind and my body.
Do you do it at home, or do you go to... I know there's lots of yoga studios in Dubai, so have you been to any of them, or just do it at home yourself?
No, so I don't go to any of the classes, because I learned it when I was back in India, and so I'm following that, and then you have a lot of good teachers coming on television.
So be in your living room doing yoga every morning before you float into work. Feeling very zen, I imagine.
Very good.
Yeah, you seem very relaxed, so maybe I need to take up yoga myself. Well, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Lois.
Yeah, really insightful. I advise people to check your LinkedIn profile out, because you do post some really interesting topics. Like you say, I can see the political angle, but yeah, I've actually learned a lot from you about Africa and other things that you're involved with and interested in. So firstly, follow Sachin if you'd like. I'm sure you don't mind some connections or followers as you build your network in Dubai. But yeah, thanks for joining. We hope this podcast has provided you with some useful tips, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you
for having me here.
No problem.